Hey, what is up, my pottery posse? Thank you so much for joining me for this tutorial. Today, we are discussing coil built handles, my friends. Coil built! Coil built handles are a great alternative to slabs or pulled handles or however else you want to make your handles. And it's gonna be great. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so a coil is just basically a fancy word for a cylindrical snake-like piece of clay. So coils can be used for many different things in hand building, and it's an amazing tool to have in your arsenal of things you know how to make. So I'm gonna start off by just splitting this in half so I'm not working with too much clay. I'm just gonna squish it lightly until it gets to a skinnier cylindrical shape to start rolling out. If you're working with a smaller piece of clay, you can always roll this out in between your hands, but a table always works too. Make sure your table is nice, clean, and dry before you do this. Notice that I'm starting to roll slower as I go on. That is because I have not been applying pressure evenly across the surface of the coil, and it's almost turned into a rectangular shape and kind of flattened out. When this happens, you can either try to go slower and make sure to press harder and softer depending on what side of your clay you're working with, or you can pick it up and squeeze it with your hands until you get the desired shape. I don't typically recommend doing the latter just because you can make things really uneven really quickly and you'll end up with a lumpy coil, and nobody wants that. Again, I'm cutting this down because dealing with less clay is just a lot easier. I can always use this to start another coil or something else later. So the flattening thing happened again, and I'm just gonna work with it this time, okay? So I'm going to make a handle that's a little bit more squared off. This is a nice alternative to rolling out an entire slab to get this look. So to make it more squared off, I'm gonna just drop it on my table until I get the right size and shape I want. When you get that desired shape and size, go ahead and start smoothing things out with your sponge. If you start to see cracks, make sure that it is structurally stable and smooth it out with a rubber rib to compress the clay. If it doesn't seem to be strong, scrap it, start again. As I have briefly discussed in other videos, clay has these tiny platelets. We wedge to get those platelets aligned to make the clay homogeneous, and it'll be really strong that way. But when we roll out a piece of clay, sometimes we can push the clay too far and those platelets begin to separate, and you begin seeing weak points in your pieces. If this happens, just implement longer periods of wedging your clay, and it should help fix the problem. Continue to smooth, making sure to flip the handle back and forth to ensure comfortable round corners. Now let's talk again about length. I discussed this in my last video just a little bit, but I basically measured out the length of the palm of my hand and the depth of my hand times 2 and added all that together and then added an inch to that. It gives me a little over 6 inches. You can either guesstimate it or you can measure it out using a ruler, or for a shortcut, you can actually just lay it out on your hand, and the correct length that you'll need should be about the length of your hand from the tip of your middle finger to the start of your wrist. Then go ahead and shape it and set it aside to dry until it's leather soft, which basically just means that it's the tiniest bit flexible, and that way whenever you attach it, you can get it to the position that you want and it holds its shape without support when it's attached to the vessel. I went ahead and made a second one because I like having options. Now let's look at another way to finish off a rectangular handle. If you've watched any of my other videos, you will know that I love having some sort of divot or channel or something for my fingers and thumb to rest in when I hold the vessel. So once you get this shape you like, go ahead and grab a bucket of water, dip your hand in it, and run your thumb down the middle of the handle with your fingers wrapped around the back. If you feel even the slightest bit of tension, get more water on your hand. Doing this will help to smooth over all those edges and make that divot. Now let's make some rounded handles finally. Continue rolling out your coil until it's nice and long. Don't make this too thin because of course it won't support your vessel if it's too small. There are two ways of going about smoothing out your rounded coil handle, which are pretty much the same as the more squared off one. After you finish rolling it out on the table, you can cut it down to size and smooth it out with a sponge either on your hand or on the table. And the other option is for you to grab your bucket of water again and smooth it out that way. For time's sake, I'm just going to show you how to smooth it out with the water. This will give you a look that is similar to a pulled handle, and it really helps to not have any uneven lumps or bumps too. I just warn you, however, that if you squeeze it too hard, you will pull part of it off and then you'll have to start again. So don't worry about if you accidentally do this too. Just remember that the goal here isn't to make it any longer, so don't apply pressure. You just want to run your fingers over it to smooth it out. I couldn't quite get this one as smooth as I wanted to, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my sponge and smooth it out in my hand like normal. So here are the three options that I made. To the left is the most squared off handle, and to the right is the most rounded. I think I'm probably gonna go with the most rounded. So while we wait for those to dry, here's an example of a coil handle that I made in the past. I love Starry Night and Harry Potter, so I did a mashup. I think the handle shape and the thickness came out quite nice on this one. I like that it's kind of more of a C versus my normal question mark look. If you're curious, I did use all underglazes to decorate this beautiful mug. If you can't tell already, I love underglazes. However, this one is not so awesome. I was rushed and someone put it in the kiln before I was ready, so as amazing as this mug is, the handle's not too great. It's a little lumpy and it's not very cleaned up at all. I was pretty upset about it. Alrighty, so it's time to pick a handle. Here's the one that is a little bit more rounded. I'm loving the shape of this already. Just for a comparison, I wanted to show you the difference between the coil and the pulled. So my left hand is a coil and in the right is a pulled. You can see how they're a little bit different here and there. It seems like the coil is a little bit more smooth and the pulled handle is a little thicker at the top. Now I'm going to go ahead and compare the other coil handles that I made to each other and pick the right one for this vessel. I like this one, however, this part right here is just a little thin for my liking. So how about this one? You know, it's really not bad. It's just a little short, so I'm going to go with the longer.
Aw, look, it's a heart.
Time to attach. Like always, go ahead and make sure you like your placement. Dip the ends in some water and stick it on there so that you can see exactly where to score. Score that puppy up. And then you're gonna slip each part. And then you're gonna fail and try again. And then you're going to stick her on there. And then you're done. Yay! Well, smooth it out first and then you're done. Last little tidbit of advice, go ahead and hold your handle so that it conforms to your hand and then let it dry. Here it is, people. Look at this. This looks fantastic. I love it. And the glaze turned out so nicely. Even with these little bubbles, I think that it looks kind of cool. And I wanted to go ahead and show you the results of my slab handle mug because I didn't get to fire it before I put out that last video. So here it is, folks, and it is wonderful. That's it, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me for this tutorial. And if you feel like it, and you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and watch a video, maybe a playlist. That'd be great, because they're free. Because sometimes you have to pay for subscriptions, but not on YouTube. That was terrifying. My po babies. Okay, until then, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.